So good evening, everyone. My name's Graham Hooper. I'm Head of Driver Training Development at the DIA. That's probably all you need to know about me. I'm going to host this webinar. If you've got questions, put them in chat. There is a place for Q&A, and I'll do my best to monitor it. But with 241 people signed up, I'm going to have to pick and choose the question. So apologies if I do not answer your question. However, I will do my best. We've got some questions that we're going to ask and answer anyway. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Kathy.
And you start with me first. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining the webinar. My name's Kathy Higgins. I'm from Merseyside, run my own multi-car driving school, which I've done so for 17 years. Been in the industry nearly 30 years now, and I've been involved in every aspect of almost every aspect of our industry. And I think that's enough about me.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, Mirza.
Hello, everyone. This is Mirza here, Mirza Taufiq, based here in Glasgow, Scotland. Right, and very similar to Kathy, no experience by 30 years, but 17 years. I qualified back in 2006 as an ADI, and since 2012, I've been instructor training, doing the instructor training as well, and specialized in rescue training, for the part 3, and I've got my own driving school, and which is, making some progress in that sense as well.
Okay, just a little way. You did get 51 out of 51 once upon a time, I remember.
Yeah. Yes, that was once upon a time. Yes, I did. Yes. So that was excellent. Thanks to you again. All right. You were one of my, few mentors, to help you achieve that.
All right. Thank you, Mirza. Okay, Andrew.
Hello, Andrew Love. I'm from Kettering in Northamptonshire. I run a training company called Let's Instruct Driving Instructor Academy. I've been in the industry since 2004, and like Kathy, I have done lots of things within the industry, fleet work, NDORS. My badges took me across the world, and I've got to say, some of it. Of my goodness is down to Graham, because he was one of the first trainers I met. But I don't want to make him embarrassed.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, I suppose really the question is, who are the trainers? Does anyone want to answer that? Who are the trainers? I'll chuck it out to the panelists.
Well, nobody really knows who they are. Before the rapid growth of social media and things like that, you'd have to hunt out the good trainers, and that would be by lots of recommendations. Now with social media, YouTube, TikTok, all these others, you don't know who they are necessarily. And there are some very good ones, but there's also some very bad ones. And some of them I don't even know if they're in the it actually got a qualification.
You don't have to be qualified, do we?
No, that's right. So I would say it was a lot easier when I first came into the industry to find the good trainers. But I'm not so sure it's so good now.
Okay, so just those are the trainers who passed their part 3 yesterday. However, well, they're not all though. In answer to that, because I've been an ADI 30 years and training 25, and I know the panel. That's why I chose the panel. Weren't born trainers, yesterday. They worked to become a trainer, but I still got to say. I mean, just a little bit probably about my story. How did I become a trainer? Well, someone phoned me up and said, will you teach me to become a driving instructor? And I said, yes. And then what I did is I repeated the same crap training that I was given initially. And I knew it was crap, and I still repeated that. And I knew after I delivered that first training session that I wasn't a good trainer. And I suppose my story then went off. I went off and invested in becoming a trainer and went to university and learned to become a teacher trainer. However, if I hadn't, and carried on repeating what I'd done as a trainer, I'd still be hopeless. And some people might say I still am hopeless, but I'm improving hopeless.
Couldn't possibly comment, Graham.
No, absolutely.
I think,
Kathy, you were sort of nodding with agreement.
yeah. I was just going to say sometimes failure can be a good thing, because I can remember when I first qualified and my training was okay, you know, but the issue is, once you get a trainer and you start on your journey, you don't know any different anyway. You just think that they must know and they're great. So, and I came to take back in the day, it was called a check test. First check test, I thought it was the bee's knees, knew everything was great. And I contacted the company that I was training with, and they said, oh no, it just turn up and give a normal lesson, not a problem. So did that, listened to everybody in the test centre telling me what to do for this check test. And anyway, long story short, I failed it. And that gave me the kick up the what I needed to start my CPD journey. I thought, no, well, I'm obviously not the best. So that was the start of my journey. And as I started to develop, I realised there was a lot more out there than just specialising in learners.
Yeah.
So yeah, totally agree.
Mirza, you're thinking.
Yeah, see, it's a very interesting question when you asked this question a few weeks ago, and I said, okay, so what I did, like, you know, I've trained, you know, good amount of PDIs, now the ADIs, they all run their own driving schools. And after when you pop this question, and I went to them, I said, because they're training the, you know, the PDIs as well under their driving school, and asked them, since qualifying, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago, in some cases 7 months ago, like, have you done any further training? Now you are training those guys, or I train you so well, you guys are going and training them. And except one person, majority or rest of them have no further training. And they say just what we do, what we normally do, and that's what we're doing. Because when I passed, very similar to Kathy, 2006, I passed my part in first attempt. And after 9 months, my standards check came, and I failed it. And that was a wake-up call for me, you know, with the journey of, you know, the CPDs and you know, when I went John Farlam, and you know, I'm blessed to get a direct training from John Farlam, one of the best of his kinds, you know, and then and for up to, like, you know, 5 years, I could not, you know, even think of training other PDIs at the time, you know. And then in 2012, I was the first batch, you know, the smart driving at the time, you know, to the training for the instructors. And still I'm learning every single day. So really, but having said this, you know, it's as I say, a fool with a plan, you know, is better than a genius without a plan. So, so going back to that again, the time we live in, the Snapchat and stories and these kind of things, you know, things perhaps change, and you know, things are, you know, getting rapidly changing in industry, and perhaps, you know, those people watching YouTubes and you know, doing something on their own. But you know, that's I'm still trying to get my head around it, you know.
So someone's made a point, which is really, you know, everyone has to start somewhere, and I guess we have to choose our trainers quite carefully. How the hell does a PDI choose their trainer? Yeah,
I think I think that's a really interesting question, because people coming into our industry, you don't know anything about it. If a particular company or a particular trainer is really good at PR, really good at self publicizing, whatever it's called, and got a really lovely shiny website and everything, and you know, they'll just read that and believe it rather than do proper research. I think that's a massive issue within our industry. And if enough people tell you the same thing with the same conviction, they still won't do the research. They'll just go with what they think. Oh, this looks good, or this has got this guarantee, that guarantee, and oh yeah, I'll go for that.
And I also think that there's, you know, if you look at social media, people will recommend people, but they've never experienced any training from them.
Yeah.
They get, oh, so John Smith's, sorry, John, if you're out there, John Smith's really, really, really good. Yeah. But only because somebody else has said John Smith is really, really good. And somebody else said John Smith, but actually didn't experience anything. So
I think as well, Graham, it's a bit like when a driving instructor gets recommended So you pass your test and you recommend this driving to all your friends because you passed, and they're great, they're a great laugh, they're brilliant, and then the learners go learning with them, but it's a little bit like if
How
you've
can they
never had
learn?
steak, you're going to think of McDonald's as great, you know.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of
Kathy.
analogy.
Kathy, I
Well,
used to run the factory that made the beef burgers for McDonald's,
oh,
so
did
they're
you?
all great.
All great, they are.
All
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, McDonald's.
So moving on from McDonald's, yeah. What do we need then? You know, there's a point in one of the chats there about what would be needed to be a proper qualification to be a trainer. Now, along tagged on that is we've got that dead duck in the water audit. So there was potentially something there that had
What we need, Graham, is we need a fully externally accredited course. Okay, now you were at the forefront of that. You and John were at the forefront of that. We've got Stuart and Kevin Tracy Fields doing something now, but we need to have an externally accredited course, because those externally accredited courses, you have to demonstrate that you're capturing the work from the individual. You have to demonstrate that you've got effective assessment and things like that.
So so the thing with that is there's two sorts, isn't there? There's I can self certify a
That's right.
qualification. So I could just put it up there and I could do a coaching for driver development qualification certified by the DIA. I could do that. However, I agree with you that it should be both internally and externally. Now, there is a problem that and I think this is why, and I don't know, and someone might correct me, people have got the Scottish qualifications because they're probably cheaper than getting last time I looked at accreditation via a BTEC, it was going to cost me over £10,000. And then certification after that, Andrew, would be anything between £100 and £200 a certificate. Which, if we're going to give that to PDIs, what's the cost? That's the problem.
So ROSPA has ROSQUAL, don't they? They've got ROSPA qualifications, so they can do it. The thing for me with this is we've got this is progression, and we've all earned lots of money out of it. We've had a good living out of it. For the 21 years I've been in, it's been a good living. You know, if we're going to make the qualification process as cheap as chips, we're not going to attract the right people into the industry.
Yeah, that brings me to a question any PDI should be asking themselves when they're paying for training, is that if driving lessons are currently, say, 40, 45, depending on where you live, per hour, and then you buy a training course, which works out a lot less per hour than that to become a driving instructor, that rings a kind of a nasty bell in my head as to why would my training be so cheap when learner drivers are paying this much?
Absolutely.
Have I said that okay? You know,
that's really. Can I just come in there, because I think sometimes we've got the cheap cost at the beginning and it defers the real cost until the trainee license and the number of years that they're tied into.
Correct, Andrew. Yeah.
Although I have to say there needs to be some better monitoring of the supervision, because I was speaking to somebody yesterday who was working with an inner city driving school. It's quite a large one, and he started on his training license in April, and he's still not done his 20 hours.
Yeah,
Now,
we've
I
yeah.
don't know whether that's because he's not gone to do it or not fitted it in, or because the school haven't. But I know in our school that you have to do the training as prescribed by the DVSA.
Yeah, same as us. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I tell you what, someone's come up like they say this has to be driven by the DVSA. No, I tell you what, it doesn't have to be driven by the DVSA.
No.
It should be driven by us, the industry. We don't have to wait for the DVSA. We can drive this ourselves if we were all in agreement about making a qualification. So let me just finish, Andrew.
Yeah.
So if we were to make a qualification, what should entail that qualification? What should be the pick and mix to make a qualification? And would that be the entry to becoming a PDI? And then an exam at the end of it, rather than, could people just qualify via the qualification and then their first test is maybe a standards check? Do we need to qualify via a standards check?
If it's an accredited course, okay, so the fleet register is an accredited course. So then you would need some sort of, so the companies would have to be.
I mean,
yeah,
look,
I
I
agree, it's not enough.
Qualification 15 years ago, and the qualifications that followed, we know what the likes of any driver did to it, and destroyed whatever substance the fleet qualification has. And I know that companies don't recognise the fleet qualification. Maybe NDORS does, but not many do.
Yeah, it's gone now, isn't it? Yeah.
Defunct. But what I'm asking is, if we were going to have a qualification, what does it need in that qualification? So, for example, presentation skills, IT skills.
So
English,
we've got
maths.
We've got the driver rider standards sets out a good format for it. You start off with the theory, what your responsibilities are, right up to the coaching levels and things like that. So I think that's a good starting point. You've got to make sure that you're managing the PDIs in an effective way. Now, there are some companies that are better at it than others. One of the things I do like about the online courses is that when you submit the work, our online course, if you submit the project before you move on to the next bit. So you can't do that until you've done that.
Mirza, because online or not online or a hybrid, what's your thoughts, Mirza?
Yeah, just on that earlier point, I believe DVSA did try to look into that to regulate it, but they even can't, control the audit. That's kind of,
Yeah, ain't going to happen, is it?
So I was thinking, I know it's not really kind of possible, but what I'm noticing, I train, for example, the PDIs, and unfortunately, one or two of them failed. So they go to these new ADIs, right? Those are skilled, but they really don't know the learning styles. They don't know really about that, the development as such. They have just this one route, and they make them practice going 30 times round, and then they go and somehow they pass, right? So what I would suggest is the DVSA can do is, a bit hybrid model, in the sense of, yes, have that live student in a car, but just before that, the motorbike tests are done. They go a little bit quiet place within that the test center where they take the motorbike tests. So something like this, perhaps, the DVS can do to regulate it better, to have half an hour or something like this, old style PST kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where they give something to really see the person is really up to the standards. If the person up to the standards, then they can carry on with, the second part of that, where they see what they're doing the normal session. So if they can do something like this, you know, I would say that will make a big difference. Then they will really go to the good trainers, right? And you know, and they will do, you know, and evaluate it. So instead of just, you know, just rehearsing and same route again and again and again, and somehow, you know, the passing going through the system.
So do you think that PDIs should have to pass a qualifying process, be vetted, shall we say, before they can even start training, to see if they have a certain personality traits that would make a good ADI, a bit like psychometric profiling, so that, you know, before they take the first hurdle, they can see if they're the right type of person to do the job. But also the people who are taking them on can see if they're the right type of person to do the job. Well,
that's the very first thing I do. I come like mother language is Urdu, right? And when somebody says, I want to become a driving instructor, and they're speaking to me in mother language, Urdu, I say to them, okay, you want to be a driving instructor? Please speak in English, right? I happen in the past, you know, they can't speak proper English. I go, no, look, I want to be honest with you, right? You need to either proper get classes, English classes, this and that. Oh, we're dealing with the Asian community. I'm like, okay, this is all well and good, but think beyond it. Like, you know, you need to be versatile. You just not fit yourself to one community. So something like this, yes, you're right, Graham, in that sense. This should be vetted, and it's down to the trainers. They need to have this conscious, right? You know, who is coming and paying the money, they need to justify it. You know, are they really up that they can really make it or not? Not just like, you know, all due respect to the big companies, you know, and they just get the money and sell the course, you know, and then.
You mean that the big companies want 2 arms, 2 legs, and a pulse?
Yeah.
And a wallet to go with it, or a purse to go with it. Is that true?
I don't know. I wouldn't say it was just the big companies that do that. We've got local companies who will use people who have gone through the system but not actually qualified. So they've taken part 3 tests, they've taken real learners, and they use them as the learner for the other people's part 3s, and they do the same, going around the same route 30 times, doing the same thing. It's almost like a play. So, and they're getting through the qualifying.
So, Kathy, is that a call in some respects to head back? And I don't like going backwards towards PSTs.
Well,
or something similar.
I think the hybrid thing, or Mrs. just mentioned that, you know, a bit like the bike test. You do part of the test with the DVSA examiner as a role play situation, and the second part of the test with a real learner.
Yeah, I think that can add value. I mean, you could do like the standards, or the part 3 test, and at the end of it, maybe the examiner asks independent questions to check. You see, effectively, we've always gone, well, to pass the part 1, they must have sufficient knowledge and understanding. But we know that's garbage, because anyone who comes to me who's passed the part 1 tends to know nothing, or maybe a little bit more than nothing, but actually doesn't retain the theory. Generally doesn't seem to help them retain the information. They might pass it. And it's a bit like, you know, if I look at rescue training, because that's where the money is for us, mainly in rescue training. If I look at rescue training, they come to you to be rescued for their part 3 after they've failed twice. At that point, you may test their theory, and then I will let them drive. Okay. And you discover that they don't know anything and they can't drive, but they passed 2 exams.
I've seen PDIs, Graham, where they've passed the part 1, passed the part 2, they're on a trainee license, take them out, and we were just doing some commentary driving. So they're driving, we're doing commentary, and the driving was absolutely awful. And I'm sitting in the seat thinking, how did you even get past part 2? The hands are all sloppy on the wheel. They're even holding one hand on the wheel, one hand's on the gear stick, and I'm like, wow.
Let's just revert back to normal. Mirza, I've got a request. Can you become more central in the screen? People want to see your handsome face. The other way. whatever way you went, because it's a mirror image, go the other way. No, you're going
The other way.
That's it.
Oh, look at that. Absolutely
look,
perfect now.
handsome. There you go.
Oh.
Got special requests. People
Yeah.
going, I want to see more of Mirza. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know where these requests are coming from. Excellent. So trying to keep us back on track. I want to go back to the qualifications really, because we can have a qualification, but I still want to know, what do you think it should entail? Or probably, actually, let's come back to that. How, we're talking about qualifications to become a PDI. Hang on, what about a qualification to become a trainer? Yeah, because who are the trainers? I'm sitting here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No one's vetted me, and I've been doing this for over 25 years. All right, I've passed me standards checks and got grade A's, passed me audits and got grade A's, but no one's vetted me. No one's sitting in the back anymore and going, not even get a snapshot from an audit. And, I know everyone's got to start somewhere, but if you started like I did, you're going to start crap. And people are paying you for that.
Yeah.
So I run trainer courses. However, people have to start somewhere. And I always feel that they're better off becoming a trainer having had some training. But who's accrediting my trainer course?
The biggest problem of all of this at the moment is that the DVSA have got other issues.
They've got no standards.
They can't focus on what's needed. And what I was going to say earlier, I seem to remember a long time ago, Neil Peake was saying that actually audit was industry driven to start off with, and then taken in by the DVSA. So it has been done before, where we've had external or we've had industry-led processes, but it was then apparently it was too good, and the DVSA had to dumb it down a bit to make it meet their standards, their low standards.
Standards are low. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Standards in this industry are low. You think about it, to pass a driving test, 15 driving faults. 15? Yeah. Would you want to sit next to someone for 35 that makes 15 faults? That's low. But let's come back to the part 3. Yeah. 31. 31. Well, that means if someone passed with 31, okay, well, 17 twos are 34. 3 areas were potentially rubbish. Were poor. And that's a pass where some of those areas are substandard.
Yeah. What I've noticed in some of the comments, Graham, is that people are saying we should use Roadcraft, we should use ROSPA as the people who everybody should go through ROSPA. Well,
I'm going to turn my nose up at that. Look,
yeah. So look, that is just driving. It seems that if we want to, it seems people think we should have a good understanding of theory, should have a good understanding of roadcraft or driving, the ability, but it doesn't focus on the teaching. And I think petals, as it used to be, should be a minimum. I've worked. I've obviously ROSPA is not just driving. I know that because I was employed. I was employed with them, employed by them for a couple of years. There was a lot of behaviour in that, particularly when they revised the qualification. Okay, but if we want to teach, we've got to have a formal teaching qualification, and we've got to be taught, or we've got to research how to teach,
and also have a knowledge of how people learn as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important on some sort of psychology type of thing, behavioural change and stuff like that. I think, but I think the biggest challenge we have now is that there just isn't enough examiners right now to deal with what we have now. So we've got trainees who are being granted a second licence. So that's 12 months of, shall we say, earning potential for these people, and they may not even be bothered whether they're going to qualify or not. They just know that they're almost guaranteed 12 months earning potential while they're looking to do something else. And then even when the 2 years is up or the license is invalid and they are told they cannot train or teach for money or money's worth, they'll still do it.
Yeah,
It's
well,
absolutely
because
rife.
in some respects becoming Uber driving instructors, aren't
Yes,
we?
yeah.
You know, and if I fail 3 times, well, I can just go
I'll
round
just
and
go round
start
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know my mate will sign me off me 40 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if I can get through the 1 and the 2,
Yeah.
I just on this note, Graham, sorry, cutting you there. I just received a call last week. You know, one of the new ADIs qualified a couple of months ago in 3rd attempt. He said, "Oh, this person saying me to sign off with 40 hours for his other guy," and Mecca, no, don't do that. Like, you know, end of the day, it's your name. You know, think beyond it. And end of the day, you know I've done NLP, neuro linguistic programming practice.
Oh, I have as well.
I've done, you know, I'm doing therapy course now with Mirza up here. And all my personal development. So end of the day, let it be then. Let the people come and quality stands out end of the day. I bet all the good trainers, you know, they're in the panel and the you know, who's perhaps listening to this as well, you know, their especially rescue training must have gone, you know, on, you know, top of the roof, like, you know, with lots of people failing and still worrying about it. So this is the nature of the beast, you know.
They don't want
have to be survival
I'll tell you that.
as trainers as well.
One thing will happen is that when I quote my prices, there's still some of them are still running. They've got as far as Scotland. That's how far they run. Yeah.
And they're more expensive up in Scotland.
We've just literally lost it. Well, a couple of months ago, we lost a PDI because they didn't like the way we were training them. And they said to me, said, "I'm really sorry, you know, you've got a great company, but I don't want to learn how to teach learners effectively. I just want to learn how to pass the test. And this other ADI trainer is going to show me exactly how to pass the test." And I was absolutely taken aback. I thought, so you don't really want to learn on how to teach people to drive. You just want a quick fix on how I'm going to get through this test.
Kathy, we know that learning to pass a test actually is more unsuccessful than learning to become a driving instructor because the pass rate's under 30% anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that brings me round to this question: how much should it cost a PDI to become a driving instructor? What number would spring into your mind minimum for a PDI to become a driving instructor?
I think you've got to look on the potential earnings of the driving instructor. So I think it's got to be linked. So if you think about, so Keith Woody has put in there that they teach when they teach ambulance in the question Q&A box, Graham, when they teach ambulance people to train ambulance drivers, they're also teaching about teaching styles, and is it CRAD or something? And that's considerably more expensive to go through all those qualifications than training to be an ADI.
I think, I personally think the industry shot itself in the foot by putting an ADI training course together, and this idea of you must do 40 hours before you can get on a pink license, that almost indicates 40 hours is enough for most people. And we all know on here that everybody learns at a different rate, everybody learns at different levels, so it actually should be similar to how learners pay for their training. It should be all as a pay-as-you-go thing, because otherwise you're saying, well, I've done the course, I've done my 40 hours, I'm ready to be let loose. And somebody's put in the comments, and we ignore the effect of poor PDIs on road safety. Absolutely brilliant comment, because that's what it boils down to, doesn't it? It's keeping people safe on the roads.
I'm going to chuck a price out there, Kathy, that I know, but you see, Brian Smith's come in, he's beat me to it. 5,000 to 10,000. I'm not against that, but I think, how do you become a trainer who can charge 5,000 to 10,000? It can't be just that's a number, because expense doesn't always, you know, it helps quality because it gives you money to back the product that you're going to deliver. However, what, you know, would that, and I know everyone has, you know, they might think they have a right, but would also that take out some people who want to become a driving instructor but haven't actually got the money to do it, so we're doing it on the cheap and not getting the right training? So would price in some way filter who comes into the industry? Let's face it, most ADIs are not very well qualified before they become an ADI, me included.
Yeah, and also I would say, remember again, back to the figure you were saying, you know, I asked one of the PDIs recently, you know, how much it costed you, and he said £18,000. I'm like, what? So, and he was right in the sense is many PDIs, they just think it's £1,500 with big national schools, or £2,500 or £3,000, right, which is average. However, they forget to put the insurance. They forget the dual controls, which is £700-800, you know, other costs along with that, the franchise on top of that, weekly franchise. So, and then, you know, and CPD costs and all these kind of things, you know. So if they take all this in, you know, so need to have a realistic, you know, thing in the mind, or roughly about 15,000. But they need to consider all other elements along with it.
And then,
as well.
yeah, paying a franchise for maybe 2 years afterwards.
Yeah. We had a lady contact us, and she was locked into, I don't know who it was with, but she was locked into a lengthy contract on a pink license. And she said, you know what? She said, the best way for me to get, or the only way for me to get out of this contract, is to fail my part three times and then start again. How sad is that? This sort of thing's happening.
Very recently, Kathy came to me and said, look, I want to do the training with you. I'm going to do some training. But he said, I want to fail because I've got to get out of my contract. He said, I'll come back to you in September. I just want to see if it's worthwhile coming back to you. So he said, I'm going to fail, and then get himself out of the contract. What sort of industry are we in?
Yeah. The same, you know, last month was it? And this guy, you know, he asked me his final attempt. And he said the same thing. I said, okay, why you called me then? Once you fail your third attempt, then get back to me, and then, you know, start. You know, he said, oh, okay, you know, I'm still double-minded on that. Like, you know, so don't, in that sense, waste my time. If they're to fail your third attempt, they better do it, and then you start your training. You know, so it's funny.
Is the problem national schools, big driving schools, individual trainers? What is the problem?
So I was listening to Charles Moulton on Sunday, and he was saying that inner city schools are more of a problem than the national schools, because they're not always as visible. And we had a very interesting conversation about what was happening with inner city schools. But I think what it seems there's some really great stuff within our industry, you know, and we've got to find a way of demonstrating the positive stuff to encourage people to want to make the change in the way that they deliver their professional business, if that's the want for a better word. I do get very frustrated with those people that come in and they don't invest in their own time. I've done it. You've done it, Graham. Kathy's done it. Mirza's done it. Yeah. It seems we all have one person in common, John Farlam. Yeah. Okay. And I think it's very important that we try and find ways to be more positive about what's happening in our industry. One of the things is we've got to find ways of getting these waiting times down for all tests.
Mm.
Okay, but
Yeah.
I'm going to put out there. However, do we need to go back to basics? Because it's part of the problem. You want to get the waiting times down. So let's say we produce better driving instructors. Because if there is, I don't know, how many PDIs out there now? 10,000, maybe more. So if about a third of the training is being delivered by unqualified driving instructors,
Graham, I think
is that going to have an effect on the waiting times? Because every time someone fails,
I think this problem isn't about just our industry. If we want to get young drivers or young people making better choices, they have to have better role models. And the role models are the drivers. And I think we're starting at the wrong point here. I think we've got, as a nation, we've got to start thinking about producing better role models. So our young
who are going to be the
drivers.
drivers, Andrew?
So
I agree, but who are going to be the drivers?
So we've got to find better ways of making sure that the drivers out there recognize that they're role models to younger drivers, because the driving, particularly since COVID, as the standards of driving are just so poor. So
but you see, to me, it's a bit like after the horse has bolted, because we can't. I really cannot see the problem being re-educating 30 million plus drivers. I can't see that behavioural change happening, and we haven't got the resources to do it. So I think we have to go back to the beginning.
But we haven't got the resources. The DVSA haven't got the resources or the willpower to make that change.
Because I haven't got a lot of time for them actually implementing anything which comes around to road safety. I also don't believe they've got the technical people inside the DVSA anymore to be able to educate us. You only have to look at when they were putting programs together. They just copy and pasted out of books. When they were delivering the better drives. Is it? I can't remember the websites. Safer driving or whatever it was for learning. A lot of the stuff there was just copy and pasted. It was not. There was no real knowledge behind it. And the people who have got the knowledge in the DVSA have started to leave in droves. So we would all know, we've been in the industry a long time. I remember when we had, DEs, they were really well educated examiners. They knew their stuff. Nowadays, if you look at the and we're going to do something, a piece about this, probably in one of the magazines about driving examiner training. I know that's being watered down.
Wow.
Yeah. So if everything's getting watered down, how can we build it back up again? I think they could start by sacking Loveday Ryder. At least it would show that they're doing something. But then that's my opinion. However, coming back to the training, I mean, this is one. Does grade matter? When PDIs are looking for a trainer, does grade matter?
I think it depends on how long you've had that grade and when were you last tested. It's just like an MOT, isn't it? It was great on the day.
Well, I'm one of them lucky ones that hits the triggers, and I get my standards check every 4 years, and I had one 2 years ago. So yeah, they pick on me. However, when you think about it, I've been the highest grade for the last 30 years, and they're targeting me. I mean, surely there must be people who should have a standards check.
You know why? You know why they're
Yeah.
targeting you, Graham? Because they're coming for you for training. They're coming to see what good looks like,
To see,
mate.
yeah.
I just have a row with my examiners. You
Mm.
know, why'd you keep arguing with me? Well, because you don't know what you're talking about. So
See, yeah, I believe so. The grade they do matter, right? Because personally, if I'm a PDI and somebody tell me this is grade B trainer, this is grade A trainer, so of course I know that, you know, who I gonna go for. End of the day, you know, I said before as well, the quality, you know, somebody, you know, in our Urdu language, there's a phrase, you know, which goes on like, you know, expensive person, if you're something expensive, that person cries once compared to something
Yeah.
cheap, cries 100 times.
Heard that before, yeah.
Right. So it's very similar, like, you know, so it's important, you know, to get graded and then, you know, putting yourself forward.
and that's a bit of a struggle now, isn't it? You know, that we're not really, you know, if we've got no standards checks, so
Yeah.
the people who are Bs, I know that recently some people have tried to get a standards check and eventually they've been successful. So I suppose in some respects there isn't any reason why trainers or wannabe trainers can't, if they haven't got an A, can't go and ask to be checked. Because I think if you think about it, and I'm just, you know, thinking about it as if I was a customer, if someone couldn't get a grade A, why would I want them as a trainer? Because I remember a trainer who's left the industry now. He was predominant on social media, selling courses, and he scored, I think it was 32 on his standards check, and was selling standards check training left, right, and centre. Mirza, you're going to have to move again because you just blew.
Yeah, you've gone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, you know, I think grade, would you want to be trained by that person who was very good at talking the talk? So I think grade is important. However, this is another question. Should trainers still be teaching learners as well as training?
I personally would say yes. And why is that? You need to, it's very similar, like, you know, being a king and not really be in touch with the public, right? Unless you don't go into the public, how would you know what the problem is, you know? So in that sense, I would say there's no harm in, you know, and not like, you know, perhaps once a week or something like this, or kind of staying in touch, you know, and really perhaps, you know, seeing what's happening, especially those coming from different trainers, different instructors, getting their perspective instead of just listening, you know, to someone else, what they're saying. So I won't mind. I do sometimes, you know, do that L driver training as well and still enjoy it. That's the important thing.
I think it doesn't have to be learners though, does it?
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to be in the learner market. You can train
Well, if we're trainers,
anybody
we're
that
doing
needs
part two
driving
anyway,
development.
aren't we?
Yeah.
We're doing part two training anyway.
Yeah.
Someone just put, grade doesn't indicate how good an instructor you are, because some grade A's are just better actors on the day. I can't wait to get my Oscar. Yeah. I'm sorry, I've got to strongly disagree with that. I couldn't pass a standards check if I was acting. I would be too confused in trying to act it out. I'm, you know, just stand up and deliver. I don't know how you three feel about that. I mean, I know some people pass their part 3 by rehearsal, but I don't think you could do it.
I think here with this, one of the areas that we don't think about developing is our own self-worth, our own confidence. And I think that's what happens on the day. So sometimes I think people know what they need to do. They've just not got the confidence to do it. So to change it, because I sit in the back of a lot of part 3s if I can, as many as I can, and when you talked to them afterwards, I should have dealt with that clutch control. I should have dealt with that positioning, but they've just not got the confidence to make that change. And I think so there should be more within the training course to manage ourselves, manage our emotions, get us more emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to
Yeah,
say that?
nothing wrong with
As I say,
VQ. I just want to take some of the questions in the chat if I can and just answer it. If any of the panel did a week's worth of learner training, would or could you still learn something extra after all years in the industry? Mark, when I had my standards check 2 years ago, I went and got a brand new learner because I knew it was coming and decided to teach them to drive and to take them to my standards check. Result was a grade A. When I teach PDIs who are on a pink badge, they bring their clients with them. I will teach their clients in the car and demonstrate that. Oh, thanks. And Ellis going, I did Graham train the trainer, by the way, and do lots of CPD. Thank you, Ellis. But coming back to that, you know, is it important enough for a trainer still to teach learners, or is it, you know, is part 2 enough, or we might all do fleet work as well? I know next week I'm out training limousines, hearse, and private ambulance. So you're still in touch.
So there was a period where I didn't teach learners for about 7 or 8 years. I was doing quite a lot of instructor training then, but I was doing fleet work and things like that. And the bit that I lost was those stories, those experiences. So and just I wasn't as polished as my head.
Okay. I think I'm
when I
permanently
came to
scarred by some of my experiences.
well, yeah, I am. But I think and I'm getting to the point now where I'm only doing 1 or 2 learners. And there again, it's about what I've got going on in my business. And things like that. So I think it should be down to the person, because my business partner, Matt Stone, he does do learners sometimes, but he's busy running his school, he's busy doing his instructor training, and he's got a few other businesses as well. You know, all within driver training, there's only so much time to go around.
Okay, so let's come back to who are the trainers and what it needs to be a trainer, because I'm going to give you, the panelists, a little bit of time to think. I'm going to come off the top of my head what I think it needs to be a trainer. If anyone wants to put something in chat or in the questions, I'll do my best to read out your views as well. So I think for me, if I had a magic wand, I would like to see something along the lines very similar to what they do in Norway at the Trondheim University, where it takes 2 years to become a driving instructor, and it's a full-time university course. Wow, that would cut the wheat from the chaff. And then they go on the road under a school's umbrella, and that school is monitored by the university. And the pay is very, very good as a driving instructor. Now, Norway's a very traditional country and quite conservative, so that's not so difficult to do. We're far more British, shall we put it? But I would like to see myself a qualification that led to you becoming a driving instructor, and then a add-on for those who want to be the trainers, because you've got to qualify first, or for us trainers already there to resit the qualification if we want to become a trainer. and then maybe have a pick and mix of areas of development. So because we all, we're all constantly at work, and have a pick and mix of stuff like communication, presentation skills, coaching, business. We haven't even mentioned that, business. I mean, people come into this industry completely blind. So I would like to see a pick and mix of all of those involved. And then once you've maybe qualified, you've got 4 years to carry on picking and mixing from those. So after 4 years as an ADI, maybe then you could become a trainer because you've done all the necessary qualifications and gained, and this is a big one, gained the experience. Because I know myself as a PDI trainer and trainers, experience did count a lot. I learned so much by actually delivering the training. And I learned from the people I was training so much. They helped to develop me. And I couldn't have done it without my clients and without that ability to be a reflective practitioner, which is something else that should be included as well, a reflective process. Yeah. So that's what I would like. That's my wish list. I can carry on wishing. However, I can also work towards maybe doing something along those lines for the industry, full stop. And those who want to come and get better can have the opportunity to do that. So out the panel, who wants to go next? Because I'm going to now have a look at the chat and see what others are saying. So please, in no particular order, spout away.
What I will say is, as I say, you in life, you don't learn from your successes. You learn more from your failures or potential or getting scared, or be afraid of the failure. So in that sense, yes, if I want to be the top trainer personally myself, that's why I really investing in my personal development with all the courses, and reading books and also following up, the mentors like Tony Robbins and all these kind of things to develop myself, and that shows in the results. So personally, I will of course have the trainer who's multitasking, understanding my learning style, who can give me a constructive feedback, a development plan, and everything, and who knows his stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Who's you? Kathy?
Kathy.
Okay. Kathy?
I think it's
go on.
Yeah, and he's dropped me straight in it. I if we lived in an ideal world, I think that the model that Norway are progressing, it does make a lot of sense, really, is that actually if you want to be a driving instructor, you've got to be serious about it. I mean, somebody's put in the chat, I know of PDI teaching learners for 50+ hours a week. There should be a cap. You shouldn't be able to, it's dangerous, isn't it? You cannot say hour number 1 of the week is, or hour number 50 of that week is going to be the same standard as hour number 1 of that week. I don't know how people can do 50 hours training a week as a PDI, even never mind as an ADI. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it needs to be more regulated, but we just haven't got the manpower to police these things. We just really haven't.
But we could cap it if you're running, driving schools. In some respects, the trainer should have maybe, I'm responsible for the PDIs I sponsor.
Yeah. But it's unless you're going to follow them round, they're not. Because all you can do is choose not to put, because we have an electronic diary system, so we know where they all are. But who's to say that they're putting all the lessons on that diary? So.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one, Kathy. But I suppose there's an element of trust, isn't there? And maybe it comes all the way back to the process of becoming a driving instructor through that psychometric profiling or some form of vetting that maybe would eliminate more of.
If that was the case, though, Graham, that people would or could maybe, I don't know, learn how to pass that test to get through to the next one.
It should have built-in cheats to it. A good
hopefully,
will have a built-in cheat to it.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else you want to add there, Kathy, before I go?
No.
to Andrew?
No, I think.
Okay, Mr. Love, let's love you.
Think that there should be more formal qualifications.
Mm.
We have to find a way of raising the profile. I mean, if you look at gas engineers, they have to do a course every 4 years, which is quite expensive. I think the profile needs to be raised. It needs to start with the industry. But unfortunately, the industry itself is not willing to make the change.
Mm.
I've invested in my time. You've invested in your time, Graham. I know Kathy and Mirza have, but not everybody is, and they see their business as making money delivering driving lessons. I think.
Oh, God, sorry.
I think I would like to see some more formal qualifications. I would like to see it externally accredited. I would like to see if you've got a teaching qualification to be a driving instructor, that could be used in other areas of adult education, like in further colleges of further education, adult education, because we are effectively teaching. So we should be able to teach in any situation. And in fact, if you look at it, if you're doing NDORS, if you're doing things like that, you're teaching in classrooms anyway. So I think there needs to be a more formal qualification that's recognised outside of our industry.
I'm just going to throw this out because it's obvious the DVSA are not capable of doing this. However, what they could do, and I may leave everyone to ponder on this, they could outsource it to another organisation if that organisation was suitably qualified to do it.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think it could well end up going that way, because we cannot go on like we are. We just can't go on like we are.
Okay, so I'm just going to leave that hanging, really. So, and I'm just going to reiterate that. So, would it be better if we had an external organisation monitoring and regulating ADI and PDI training?
Well, it couldn't get any worse, could it?
I think the problem is,
I'll put some people's noses out of joint.
yeah, it would do, but I think the problem is that will it turn into another DVSA? I think it's got to be a private company or a couple of private companies that do it, and because they are more accountable than a government organisation.
Okay, all right. So I think we're 19:35, so we've done a full hour. I'd like to thank Kathy, Mirza, and Andrew.
Oh, thank you. It's been my pleasure.
For their input. Really pleased. Okay, someone's just asked. Sorry, I was going to read that about my one-to-one bespoke course, trying to get some more info on it. Blah blah blah. Yeah. So if you've emailed,
is that externally
yeah, I just ended up
accredited?
selling the course. That wasn't my plan. But yeah, you just contact us. I think if the panels want to put their email addresses into the chat, if anyone wants to contact anyone on the panel, it's great. You can always, anyone on here can contact me via the DIA anyway, where you're registered, so it's not a problem. Okay, so I just let the panelists stick that in their chat. Yeah, no, I agree, Mark. It does depend on who you're outsourcing to, but we would like to think that the company that is outsourced would have the reasonable resources and qualifications, etc., in the first place to be able to do that.
Off what?
Yeah, so.
Off what?
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say.
Well, of what? I don't know. I could.
Off what?
I
The water accredited people.
Set up your own accredited. I don't need to set up my own accredited organisation. Mark, you might find that if you look at my finger, that's possible. Yeah, that it could be vetted by an outside organisation, which might upset a few people. But there again, we have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, it can't. And Kathy put it. It shouldn't get any worse. And if we've got the right people in place, then maybe. So look, thank you all for being an attendee.
Thank you.
Really appreciated that you've given up your hour to listen to us waffle. Hope you've gained something for it. Thank you from me to my panelists. Again, Kathy, Mirza and Andrew. I'll be in contact. I'm going to finish this now, so we will all disappear. Have a good evening, everyone.
Brilliant.
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.